This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. We sit here on Monday, November 29th, in a much different position than we thought we probably would be a couple weeks ago when you and I were talking about how the season would finish out. We have Bill Greene here from Buckeye Scoop joining me. And, just a couple weeks ago, you and I, Bill, were talking about how Ohio State would just find a way to beat Purdue, beat Michigan State, tough game against Michigan, and then who knows against Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. But now Wisconsin's not in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State's not in the Big Ten championship. And the Buckeyes are sitting at 10-2. The regular season's over. They await their fate. Saturday night should tell us if Iowa wins, Ohio State probably goes to a New Year's Six bowl, but not an attractive one, probably against a group of five team, which right now, if Cincinnati makes the playoffs, is looking like Brady Hoke San Diego State team. And
that would be kind of fun.
But if Michigan wins, the Buckeyes will go to the Rose Bowl, which used to mean something. And they'll play the winner of Oregon, Utah. It could be nice to have another crack at Oregon, kind of redeem that.
I think so.
Yeah, but it's obviously disappointing because this was a team that, despite the loss to Oregon early in the year, despite their shortcomings, we thought the offense would just be too good and get them into the playoffs. And everyone wanted to see that Ohio State offense versus Georgia defense matchup. It would have been awesome, but unfortunately we're not getting to see it. And, you and I have been around, you've been around longer than I have, but we've both been around long enough to know that after a loss like this, the boards are not a pretty place to be. Our site is not a pretty place to be. Our old places of work, Bucknuts, 24/7, rivals, whatever it is, it's not a pretty place to be.
What it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And there's a lot of things being said, a lot of emotions being felt. And, we're happy to be kind of the place to vent and let it all out. But there's been kind of a narrative growing of Ohio State is broken. To me, it's kind of comical. You take a step back, a 10-2 team that was literally, maybe a possession or two getting the ball back by their defense away from, winning the Big Ten again and going to the playoff is now considered broken. And don't get me wrong, I think Ohio State has things that they need to fix, and we'll talk about that on the show. But in your opinion, Bill, is Ohio State broken?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, assuming they keep everything the same, which they won't, I think there are improvements that Ryan Day will make to this staff. But let's say he doesn't. Let's say he says, I love everything about my program right now. I'm bringing back the coaches as they are. I'm bringing back all these players. I'm not going into the portal. They would still be the favorite to win the Big Ten next year, and they would be one of the 3 or 4 favorites by Las Vegas to get in the playoffs. And they probably would be less than 6-1, 7-1 to win it all next year. That's if everything stays the same. So no, they're not broken by any means. They're going to be the favorite to win the Big Ten next year. And if you win the Big Ten, you're going to the playoffs. And if you get to the playoffs, you have a chance to win a national championship. So no, not broken. But, there are things he needs to fix. I think from my end, they need a big time defensive coordinator, not Kerry Combs, who's never called the defense before, not Matt Barnes, who was a Band-Aid and did as good a job as he can do, but get the best, whoever the best is. If it's me, I'm calling Chris Ash, I'm calling John Haycock, I'm calling Marcus Freeman, and not necessarily in that order, but those would be the 3 guys that I would target, one of them, to come in and take over this defense. And if you have somebody calling the defense, then that knows what he's doing, that's done it before, that is respected throughout college football, then at that point, I think everything falls into place. And the opposite of that is when you don't have the right defensive coordinator, when you've got a novice on the job that is not one of the best in college football, then every position group is going to look weird because it all starts from the top. The DBs aren't going to be as good as they should be. The linebackers are going to look terrible when the scheme's wrong. Even Larry Johnson, the best D-line coach in America, his front got annihilated the other day. And I think it all starts at the top. I think if you get the right D coordinator in there, then everything flows from there. So that would be my one tweak, would be get a big time D coordinator in here. And then if you get Chris Ash or you get John Haycock or you get Marcus Freeman, he may look at the rest of that staff and think, these are the dudes I want. I want Larry Johnson. I want Al Washington. I want Kerry Combs, So we'll see. But that's where it has to start. You got to get a real live official big time defensive coordinator that they haven't had for 2 years now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And because the next question I was going to ask was, what does Ryan Day need to do to fix Ohio State? So for me, I don't think they're broken. I would call them cracked. Maybe there's a little crack you got to repair. And to me, it's very similar to the 2013 season to me, where they had a really good offense with Braxton Miller and Urban Meyer and Tom Herman, but the defense was a disaster, and they went undefeated, and then they lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championships, and then they lost to Clemson in the Orange Bowl, which, was kind of an exhibition game anyway. But after that, Urban kind of said, enough is enough. He got rid of Everett Withers. He demoted Kerry Combs. He kind of demoted Luke Fickell. He brought in Chris Ash, and, that changed things for Ohio State.
Everything. Changed
and
everything.
There was an attitude change. And I think that is what's going to happen with Ohio State on defense. Ryan Day missed the first time with Kerry, and we love Kerry. He's great. He wasn't the right defensive coordinator for this team. Not maybe all to his fault, but he wasn't the right guy for the hire when Jeff Hafley left. And I think Ryan Day will not get it wrong twice. I think he's going to go out. He's going to get a big time defensive coordinator. I also think the other thing, and, a lot of people are saying Ohio State's soft. They're not tough. I don't know if it's that. I think maybe they got a little complacent. Maybe they just, they're coasting. I mean, no one in the Big Ten is really close to them from a talent standpoint. I mean, Ryan Day, that was the first Big Ten game he lost to Michigan the other day. And, I think they kind of were thinking we're just going to show up and beat Michigan the same way we just drummed Purdue and we drummed Michigan State. I think that's what they thought that they were going to do. And maybe this is a wake up call. And I put this on the shoulders of Mickey Marotti more than anyone. He's got to maybe not, I think, toughen up the team, but he's got to make them play angry again. Like that's how they played under Urban Meyer. He never let anyone be comfortable and complacent. And I don't think that people who pick apart Ryan Day's attitude and approach with the team are necessarily right about, Urban was right and Day doesn't approach things right. I don't think that's right, but I do think Day needs a Mickey Marotti to kind of counter him a little bit and get these guys a little less comfortable with just being complacent. So that's something I want to see going into next offseason, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens because the coaching carousel is wild. And you mentioned Marcus Freeman as a potential candidate for Ohio State. That may not last long because before we jumped on the show, there was rumors that Brian Kelly was being pursued by LSU. Now I just got an alert on my phone. There are being reports that Brian Kelly is going to go to LSU.
Oh my gosh.
Which, we can talk hours and hours probably about if he's a good fit at Notre Dame. At LSU, because I don't think either of us think he is. And I don't know why he would go to, I'm sure it's a ton of money. And I'm sure the donors at Notre Dame are not fun to deal with, but it's a much easier path to the playoff, in my opinion, at Notre Dame than it is at LSU in the SEC West, where you're going to have Oklahoma and Texas and Alabama and Arkansas and Auburn, and you're going to have to play Georgia or Florida or Tennessee now with Josh Heupel seems to be going in the right direction. I mean, that is going to be real tough. But that's potentially one change. And Luke Fickell could go to Notre Dame and then Marcus Freeman might go to Cincinnati. So Marcus Freeman might be out of the picture, but we'll talk about all the changes in a second and how that might affect Ohio State recruiting, but let's talk about Ohio State changes. There's some rumored changes out there. I know you and I probably don't want to go into too much detail because we have relationships to maintain. We know some of these guys and you don't want to speculate on rumors, but there's rumors out there that Larry Johnson could retire, as there are every year. And I think that, there could be at some point he is going to retire, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
there's rumors on the offensive side of the ball with Stud, Greg Studrawa, that he could be moving on, and him and Ohio State could be separating ways. I know Al Washington, a lot of people have him on the hot seat with the way the linebackers play this year. And then, of course, to me, if you're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, do you need both Matt Barnes and Kerry Combs if neither of them are calling the defense? I'm not sure you do. So,
yeah,
I think so. So I guess my first question is, without speculating too much, unless you're hearing something on who might be staying, who might be leaving, how does any shakeup within the Ohio State staff, forget other coaching changes elsewhere, how does that impact Ohio State recruiting, in your opinion, as we stand here, 15, 16 days until National Signing Day?
Yeah, I don't know. There are some programs that kind of recruit themselves. And as long as it's not the head coach, I don't think CJ Hicks would bolt with Al Washington out of the picture. Not that I think Al's going anywhere, or I think Al should go anywhere. I like him a lot as a coach, as a person. But I just don't, when I look at this class, I just don't see any kid in this class that isn't really committed to Ohio State and Ryan Day as much as their position coach. Now, you might argue with the wide receivers that they're coming here because of Hartline, in the offense, but Brian's not going anywhere. So I think they're safe there. I don't know, but now you start talking D-line and Larry Johnson. Now that kind of would concern me a little bit there. If Larry Johnson does retire and he retires prior to the first signing day, that could be an issue for Ohio State there. That I would think might be an issue. The DBs seem to hang in there good when they switch from Combs and Barnes, kind of flop back and forth. So I think they'd be okay. This recruiting class, I think, would finish strong and be fine. But boy, I worry about the D-line if Larry Johnson goes, because a lot of guys do commit to Ohio State. You look at the guys that people commit to Ohio State because of the assistant coaches. I always look at the D-line and the wideouts. Those two, man, Hartline and LJ, they're so important to their position groups. And, Hartline's going nowhere. So, boy, you worry about Larry Johnson.
Yeah, I think you got to put Kerry Combs in that bucket too, because you look at what happened when he left and where the DB recruiting went. And I think if you have someone who is up to snuff, like a Jeff Hafley, who comes in, you're okay with a track record and all that potentially. Yeah. But Taver Johnson came in and didn't do such a great job. And I like Matt Barnes, but he's admittedly not a huge recruiting guy. I think he does an okay job connecting with recruits, but he'll be the first to admit he's not, Mr. Personality. So I think if you lost Matt Barnes, a Parker Fleming, I think recruits love Al Washington, but if you lost him, as you said, with CJ Hicks or Gabe Powers, I think they're still coming to Ohio State.
I think so.
Larry Johnson is the biggest loss right now for Ohio State, and Hero Canu's still out there. Caden Curry's still out there. There's a number of guys. Kenyatta Jackson's committed, probably because of Larry Johnson. Amari Boer likes Larry Johnson. So there's guys out there. That's a position group that's not committed already, and you could potentially lose a lot of those guys. Now, the good thing with Canu is Oklahoma might have been his second choice and they lost their coach.
Right.
But it also could go the other way, right? Like if Larry Johnson left, and let's just say they hired a guy like Elijah Robinson from Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's different.
Could you keep everyone, and B, Shamar Stewart might be going there. Walter Nolan's going there. Could you potentially convince some of those guys to come to Ohio? So it could go both ways, which is really interesting.
Right.
And we'll be interested to see, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. The last thing I want to talk about though is the coaching carousel. It is wild right now.
Never seen the last 24 hours. I've never seen anything like it. I just got a text as you were talking from someone who should know that Brian Kelly has absolutely taken that LSU job. And this is another coach who should know what he's talking about. So we're recording this at 8:20 on Monday night here, and I'm shocked. I was totally shocked by Lincoln Riley, blown away totally by that. And now this trumps that. I
Yeah.
at least could kind of understand Lincoln Riley going to SC, easier conference to win. He loves recruiting California. Now he'll definitely get all those California kids. But Brian Kelly, they may be in the playoffs this year. They might win a national championship this year. It's not out of the realm that Notre Dame makes the playoffs. If Baylor beats Oklahoma State, Notre Dame's getting in. And then what if they win it all?
Or if Cincinnati loses.
Oh, there's Notre Dame's in a good spot right here.
I'm shocked that this is coming out.
I'm
right
more
now.
than shocked. This is past shock. This is like crazy world. And I think it puts Luke Fickell as the favorite to be the next Notre Dame coach,
and he might be in the national championship.
He might win a national championship too this year. So this is just, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, the two moves of Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly are beyond. I don't even know what to say, and none of them were rumored. There was no leaks on either of these. We've been hearing Dave Aranda for LSU. We've heard all these names, for SC, Matt Campbell, Luke Fick. We never heard Lincoln Riley to SC before yesterday. We certainly never heard Brian Kelly to LSU before 5 minutes ago. Like, it's bizarre. I guess the next move is Ryan Day takes the Bears job and totally turns college football upside down. And I'm kidding on that. I don't expect that.
I was going to say, and then what does Luke Fickell do?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
Urban might be back. Who knows?
You never know. It's bizarre right now.
Yeah, no, it's
crazy.
But I think if it tells you anything, it tells you that with coaching, you can never, I think Ryan Day is going to stay at Ohio State for a while, but you never know. You never know. Because to your point, Lincoln Riley was rumored to LSU. He went to USC out of nowhere. And I think that is a great move for him because it's going to be much easier to win the Pac-12 than it is SEC at Oklahoma. And he recruits California so well already that he's just going to clean up out there. And then on top of that, the Brian Kelly thing makes no sense to me.
Zero.
I'd have to imagine they go Campbell or Fickell.
Notre Dame, you mean?
Yeah, Notre Dame. And if it's Fickell or Urban, if it's Fickell,
who coaches who in the playoffs? What if
I don't
Notre
know.
Dame both make the playoffs? Does Brian Kelly not coach the playoffs? Does Fickell take the Notre Dame job and leave Cincinnati before the playoffs?
It's crazy.
Does Marcus Freeman coach both teams in the playoffs? Coach Cincinnati and Notre Dame both in the playoffs. It's beyond anything I could have imagined.
Ever. And then on top of that, Jim Harbaugh might be in the national title game in a month, which something I never thought I'd see. So
he could also lose to Iowa this week. So don't throw that out of the possibility.
I don't think Iowa is capable of scoring more than 7 points. So
I don't either.
We'll see. But I guess so, Bill. So it's crazy right now. But do you see? So Oklahoma for me, I don't think makes much of a difference for Ohio State.
No,
from a recruiting standpoint,
no.
I don't think they're getting Gabe Brownlow Dindy no matter what. I don't think they're getting Gavin Sawchuk, and there's no one else really there. The one area where I think people are a little concerned is Zion Branch and Zachariah Branch, because to me, it was pretty clear that USC, if they were stable, they probably would have got him. But I think Ohio State's in a really good spot, and relationships matter, as you know, and Zion Branch has had the relationship with Ohio State for a really long time. That said, he did take an official visit to Oklahoma in the summer.
Right.
There's a relationship there. He knows Lincoln Riley. He knows Alex Grinch.
Those are USC kids too. I mean, they grew up rooting for USC, both the Branch brothers. So I would be a little concerned.
I think you got to be concerned for sure. We got to dig into that one a little bit. But other than that, I don't see that one being too much of an impact. Now, Notre Dame, on the other hand.
Fickell to Notre Dame is scary for Ohio State.
Fickell to Notre Dame is very scary for Ohio State. But if it's not Fickell, if it's Campbell, I still think that that's obviously good for Notre Dame in recruiting the area.
Yeah, not
though. Do you think it opens up the door for an Emil Wagner potentially? I don't even think Ohio State was second in that recruitment. So
no, I don't think they were ever in that one. They were never in the Goodwin one. I mean, I don't think they're getting Ernest Green. I I think if Stud left tomorrow, it wouldn't hurt recruiting at all. They can make you the offensive line coach in terms of, I don't know what the play on the field would be, but I think the recruiting would go up. You know,
Don't underestimate me, Bill.
hey man, you could walk into, I mean, what does it take to walk into an Ohio high school with the block O on your shirt and be able to recruit Ohio kids to Ohio State? It should not be that hard. It is pretty hard for O-line, but it shouldn't be. So that's a different story for a different day. But,
yeah, but Fickle would be a problem. Fickle would
definitely would be a problem in Ohio. Yep.
Yeah.
And in the surround, he would be going after the same kids you're going after.
No doubt.
He would be a handful more than Brian Kelly would be.
And it's too early to kind of say for you know, depending on who they hire, but a Brennan Vernon now could be back on the table, right? I mean, that's a kid to me who's a Notre Dame kid, and I think if they hire Campbell or Fickle or an Urban Meyer, he's good. But you know, if they handle
crazy, the phones are going crazy here, man.
Yeah, it could be interesting though to see how some of these movements impact people. You know, the only move who really won't impact, I don't think, too many people is Billy Napier right now.
No, I don't think so.
You know, I like that hire actually for Florida, but
I think he's good. And I think I would look, I was talking today, I would look for possibly Tom Herman to be the O coordinator there. And I wouldn't rule out Chris Ash as the D coordinator there. So
that would be a good staff.
Recreate the old OSU national championship magic there.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I don't think Ohio State fans would mind that. Maybe not Tom Herman, but certainly Chris Ash. So Bill, before I let you go.
Yeah.
Right now, what do you see as the playoff championship game and your winner this year?
I mean, it has to be Georgia. I mean, I probably would have said Georgia, no matter who's in there. I mean, I think they're really good. The thing is, they do not fit the profile at all of the past national championship winners since we've gone to the 14 playoff. You don't see a defensive team that runs the ball and doesn't have a great quarterback win. We used to see that, you know, in the Jim Tressel era. You haven't seen it lately, but maybe the tide is shifting because things change in college football every decade. And when you see what Michigan did the other day to Ohio State, when you see the way Georgia's been winning this year, Notre Dame, maybe there's a shift taking place right now where we're going to get back to defense and blocking and tackling and away from 7-on-7 football. Maybe that shift is occurring right now. I think this Saturday's game between Georgia and Bama is going to tell us a lot. I mean, I think Georgia's so much better than Alabama that it's not even funny. I mean, Bama can't score on LSU. They're struggling with Arkansas. You know, it was a miracle they even scored against Auburn, let alone won the game. So I think Georgia's going to pound them and pound them pretty good, but still Nick Saban standing over there. And if he gets in this thing, I'm telling you, even with the bad team that he has, they can win it if he gets in. So yeah. I'm here to say Georgia's going to win the national title. I think it'll be Georgia and Michigan for the national title, and the game can be 12-10 with about 5 minutes to go. But this is the year, man. This is the craziest year I've ever seen. The national championship game could be Oklahoma State and Cincinnati.
And I think
sit back and let it unfold.
I think this is a crazy year, and I think things are going to go back to normal next year. I think Clemson's going to be better next year. I think Alabama's going to be better next year.
Yeah.
I actually, despite a hard schedule, I like Ohio State to win it all next year, especially if they get the D coordinator right. I mean,
he will. Ryan Day will get this right. I firmly believe
Georgia will be good again next year. So, you know, yeah. So it's. I think this is a 1 year crazy year but you know, I'm interested. I think it's going to be. I'm kind of hoping. I think Ohio State fans should hope that Alabama beats Georgia and then Georgia beats Michigan like a drum in the semifinals. But I think it's just so hard to bet against Saban this weekend. I don't know if I could do it. I agree with you, but like, it's just that mental thing of assistance.
I know. Kirby could find a way to blow it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think Georgia's offense is good. That's the thing. I don't think
either. If this game is 23-21 going to the fourth quarter, Alabama's going to win.
Yep.
But I mean,
If Georgia
what
gets
should
out,
happen. Georgia's going to have them about 24-3 going to the fourth quarter, and Bama's going to have about 100 yards worth of offense and not cross midfield only once. I mean, LSU totally stoned Bama. Look at what Auburn did the other day to Bama.
Yeah.
I mean, that should have been a shutout. They should not have scored. So I just think Georgia's going to pound them. I think this is their chance. They got Nick with one of the worst teams he's had in a long time. And I think you got a chance to knock him out. You don't want to have to play him twice.
Yeah, I agree.
If he beats you this Saturday and then he gets a month to really get his team figured out, he's definitely going to beat you again.
Yep.
If Bama wins this game this week, they're going to probably win a national title.
I can
There's
see
no
it.
way Georgia's going to want to play him again. Georgia will just fold if they have to play him, a second time this year.
That's probably true. I think Georgia's going to beat them. I think they're finally going to beat them. I think Georgia.
I do too.
Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Cincinnati 3, and I think Oklahoma State is going to get it done.
They better win. They better beat Baylor, or else Notre Dame goes in the playoffs. And
yeah, I think
that would be fascinating with all this coaching stuff. If Notre Dame makes the playoffs, if Brian Kelly has indeed taken that LSU job that I was told he has, there's no way Notre Dame's letting him finish the year out and coach that team.
No way. Marcus Freeman.
Crazy. And then if Marcus Freeman goes on and wins the national title, there's no way they're hiring Fickle. They're definitely hiring Marcus Freeman. Man,
crazy.
It's crazy stuff. I mean, that's why we love this stuff.
It is wild, and I'm excited to see what happens. But Bill, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate it. As always, listeners, appreciate it. Be sure to follow us on BuckeyeScoop.com. Bank and I always love to post our bets. I got whooped last week. I don't know about you.
I got beat up, but I'm still ahead for the year, and I know you are too.
Yeah,
I got anybody that's ahead for the year this year, picking games against the spread. Pat yourself on the back, because this has been one of the craziest years from the first week on. So anybody that's sitting there one game over 500, you have my respect. And we're both there. So you've done better than me. I think I'm 49-40 now or something, which I'm proud of that. And you're better than that.
Yeah, I'm having a good year, but last week was no good. So hopefully this week is a bounce back for both of us. And, definitely stay tuned to the scoop. We're going to have plenty on recruiting leading up to signing day. So thanks everyone for listening, and see you next week. This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.